Kia ora anō e te whānau. Just to make sure that we land safely into this space, I'm going to open us up with a karakia just to collectively join us together with all the busyness that what's happening and land us safely in the space and the kōrero, amazing kōrero that we have in store for us today. Nā reira, tikina atu rā ngā kākono ngā pihi ngā mahi. Tiki tia ona taia ora, ona taia tipu, kia tipu tōtika, kia tipu whakahihi, kia tipu ki te paiau ki te ao mārama. Ngā pūtake kia papatua nuku, ngā wawata kia rangi nui. Tēnei te mauri ka whakataka, tēnei te wānanga ka whakakake. Tēnei te ia ka whakamaua, ka whakaputaina ki te paiau, ki te māramatanga, taia hoako, haumi e hui e tai ki e. Nā reire te whānau nau mai e te raki, e te rāwhiti, e te tonga, e te uri. E te uru, nau mai I rungi te reo pōhiri tau mai rā. Kia ora anō e te whānau, welcome back to our Practice Foundations sessions and our launch, very first launch for 2023. Us and the team, today we have Jess, as well as Lee, as well as Baruch holding the space we have this 90 minutes together. If it's your first time here, no mai, and if you're returning once again, no mai hoki mai. But again, time is short, and I'm going to hand that up over very shortly to allow this amazing kōrero that we have in store today. Nā reira, tēnei te reo mihi kia koe e roimata. Kia ora rā e hoa.
Tēnei tātou te whānau. Tēnei he uri, tēnei no Hautū Waka. No pirongi a maunga no ngā tia pakura, te tātou pāpā, te tātou ki māma no ngā tia kawa, no Parawira marae. E no wana au ki Manurewa, toko whā aku tamariki. We reside in Manurewa, attempting to bring up our teenage children. They're all teenagers now, one of them just turned. So we're praying that he makes really good and sound decisions. So, I've been given the opportunity today to have a bit of a kōrero with you guys about Hautū Waka. And Hautū Waka is a really easy way to get into the mahi that we're doing around systems change, around systems education, and all of that kind of goodness. In this session, I hope to share with you some practical applications and how you might be able to use Hautū Waka in your systems yourself by giving you some tool sets, but also some thoughts for provocation. We're going to start with the provocation piece first. What are you seeing? Seeing the right screen? Okay. And it would be nice if it would just move. There we go. So Hautū Waka originates and comes from a karakia. It's not a practice that has been pulled out of something. It's actually a thought system that's been implemented and practiced by our tupuna for a long time. And you'll see evidences of Hautū Waka or pieces of Hautū Waka or the phases of Hautū Waka inside of different karakia, inside of different, sometimes more tiatia, but mostly inside of the genealogy story of how things came to be. So we were very blessed to work with Papa Rereata. At the time, Ayla Hoeta was working beside me, and we got to just spend a bit of time around framing what this is and how it might be used as a way forward to help people delve into Indigenous practice. So first phases that we have around, well, as you can see, there's a few phases. Whakariterite is the first one around preparing your crew for the journey. Te rapunga is around venturing into the unknown. Then we go to a space of te kitenga. Te whāinga, digging a bit deeper. Te whiwhinga being the space where we just dwell a little bit more. We have a bit more of exploration, and then we have a space of te rapunga. Now you might not know it, but I can guarantee you probably think in this way. None of this is lineal. it's all cyclical. In fact, there's a book written by Shelley Spiller, and it's also reverberated inside of Hotiwaka, where he speaks about spherical thinking and how the navigation, or just the process of navigation, indigenous navigation, takes you out of being quite 2D in dimension thinking, but forces you to be in a space of spherical thinking. And actually, you probably think that way, you just don't know it. So Hautū Waka can help you ground into some of those. What I was hoping to do with you guys first is to test this whakaaro around kitenga, and for you to test it yourselves and to dwell a little bit more and think about what it is that you do inside of the kitenga. So te kitenga as a phase, it's the third piece, it's the third phase or part of the journey, is when you're literally just sighting. You're not doing anything about it. You're just highlighting, noticing, seeing what's happening around you inside of your environment. And when we speak about the environment, there have been some pretty major things that have happened. What is pretty amazing in my whakaaro in hindsight is that there have been tohu inside of our environments that have been present, that showed or could have given us indication to, and they probably were indications to what was going to happen in tamaki in our environment. Right. So the first tohu that was evident inside of the environment were these ones. So on your left, you'll see a moon halo. Then on your right, you'll see a sun halo. So you have a lunar halo, then a solar halo. So we call this one on the left a kura hau po, and this one on the right a kura hau awatea. And pretty much Western science calls it a natural phenomena. And it's a natural phenomena in the sense where ice particles, the temperature up there, it drops dramatically, where it traps ice particles in the atmosphere, and then it causes the light to refract back into itself. So it causes that halo effect. You can call it natural phenomena, you can call it whatever you want to, really. What it comes down to is that a tohu, it's a sign. And this one was taken last year here in Auckland, to just in Waimau. And if we didn't have the weather people, what are they called? Med service? Is that it? Anyway, we didn't have the weather peeps, then this would have been our first clue that something was going to happen. And 4 days later, there was a hurricane here in Tamaki. It wasn't a big hurricane. We didn't get any massive floods or anything like that, but it was still something pretty significant, and it was telling us just to brace. This one over here, this happened a week before Gabrielle. We were on our way back from Raglan, actually, from our team mahi, and it happened that morning of. And then maybe 4 days later, Gabrielle hit. So these were some of the tohu that were evident inside the environment. Something else that's been happening inside of the environment is the blooming of the trees. And I mention these things because these are things that we just bypass. We see them, we don't think about it, we're like, oh look, it's red. But actually they are indicators for what is happening inside of our environment. So usually the pohutukawa, Metrocetus, will bloom either from bottom, so all of the flowers will bloom from the bottom to the top, or it'll bloom from the top to the bottom. And those are indications to us around that you're going to have a long summer, or you're going to have quite a wet summer with a little bit of a heat. I can't remember which one is which. I thought I did, but I would just be lying if I told you. So just make sure you can have a look at those next year. But what happened this year is completely different. The puawai, the pohutukawa, bloomed mottled. So it bloomed it'll bloom down the bottom, then up the top, then in the middle, then it doesn't usually do that. That's not a characteristic of this particular tree. And so we noticed it here in Tāmaki. Then another one of my friends in Raglan saw the same thing. Hauraki saw the same thing. And, you know, we're like, oh, that's different. I wonder what is happening. This is like, this tree blooms in Matiti Muramura. Matiti Muramura is around about October-ish, November-ish. And so it started to act up then. And it was still blooming after Christmas. That's not usually what it does either. So us tree people were like trying to figure that out. The other rako that acted a bit weird was this one here, the Pomaderus, the Kumaraho. So it usually it'll hold on to its bloom and it tricks you. It tricks you into thinking it's going to go in the next few days. Actually, it holds on to it for about a good 3 weeks longer. It didn't this year. It let it go, and then it created more blooms, and that's not normal either. So it was mottled, it was staging its blooming. And we saw that happening up in Te Kao, where good friends of mine live, and they're like, this is so weird. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the only tree that's being a bit funny this year. And so why is it important that we even notice these things that are happening in our environment? Well, they are indicators. They're indicators for what is to come and what could potentially happen inside of our environment. But again, when we bypass the things that we just think just happen naturally, they are actually clues. They're clues left in plain sight for us to see and to take hold of. So, in light of the kōrero about noticing and about things that are happening inside of your current environment, what we want you to think about, what are tohu that you see every day that can be indicators for what is happening in your environment. Now, your environment can change. We're talking about, you could frame this any way you want. It could be the environment that you see around you outside. It could be your work environment. What are tohu that are happening inside of your work environment that can be indicators for what is happening next or what is to come. This could be what is happening inside of your current whānau environment. I use Hautū Waka. I Hautū Waka the death out of my kids because it gives me an indication of what in the world is that teenager thinking. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But hey, the point of the matter is we want you to think about what are the tohu that are in your current environment, be it whichever environment you frame it up as and what are the tohu that you're seeing as clues in the environment that you're in. So we're going to send you off to have a little bit of a kōrero about that, and then we'll bring you back. Okay, nau mai hoki mai. So in the chat, just mention, if you can mention some of the tohu that you see happening in your environment. Some of the kōrero that has been coming up is around when a glass goes warm on the table, it's an indication that the temperature in the atmosphere has dropped and it's going to rain. Probably. My indicator for raining is my brother gets sore bones. Do you remember that old school thing where they have to wear copper? That's my brother. He's like, oh, my bones are sore. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to rain. Other indicators that are happening inside of the environment is the Hotiwaka blooming. The blooming of the Hotiwaka shows that the kinas are ready. Man. That's when they are their best. Okay. Thank you for your sharing. Now, before I take you into some delving into the tool sets, I wanted to show you what you will be able to access when you go onto the Co-Design Lab website. So you'll be able to access the Hotiwaka framework. You'll get this. Then you'll get a bit of a kōrero around how you can best utilize and use Hautū Waka in your environment. This gives a little bit of a whakapapa, where it came from, the mahi that we did with Matua Rereata. And that indicators of Hautū Waka are seen inside of the karakia called te pune te pupiki. There's a piece of writing that was by Nicholson, 2020, and man, you should just read it. I'll see if we can put that in, but if you can't, just type in Nicholson 2020, and then you'll be able to see a few more frameworks around this type of mahi. This also talks about the fact that we do invite you to utilize this tool set, and it doesn't belong to a one person. So I might be the person that just writes some stuff up and does a bit of research and figuring out what's happening and how people are using it, but I'm not the knowledge holder, neither is Papa, and we acknowledge that. And so as a gift, as a way to help you delve into using this, we've given it to you in 3 stages, but we're only giving you the first stage. The first stage we're calling the pipi dive. And the pipi dive is an opportunity to delve into the depths of Hautū Waka, but in a shallow manner. So you think about when you go to get pipis, you're going to get a little bit a tiny bit wet from the way, but but when you go and get the resources, you're not going to be completely submerged. The second stage, which is our kina dive, and the third stage, which is our ruku moana, these will be left up to those who work inside of Te Māori, and they can determine whether that is safe to release or not. This is just our mechanism, our way of protecting something that is quite sacred and quite beautiful. Okay, so what you'll see is you'll get an explanation of whakarite and what it is. We've already been through this, and this is already mentioned on the first clip that we recorded in 2021. What you won't see on that first one is a set of questions that help people land into the space of whakarite, helps them delve into just a little bit deeper. When you're asking things around like what are the conditions in the relationships in the space, what prepares us for this mahi, talks about what are the resources that we need to have with us and the resources that we need to leave behind, all of that stuff. Te rapunga is the same thing, drawing from past experiences and venturing into the unknown, but the questions that we're asking in this are, what are the supports to spot tohu? What are the things that we need to help us spot tohu? And what are the capabilities, what are the mindsets, and what are the processes that help us to spot these tohu? When we're talking about that, we're talking about the types of people that are on your waka. What are the skill sets that they bring to enable them to see tohu that you can't see? Then we've got te kitanga, a space of sighting. The questions that help people land into those things are, what are the tohu that they are seeing in the current system? We just did this as an exercise. What are the tohu that we are seeing in this current environment? And what is the landscape? What is the context that are happening? And what are the possible opportunities? But also, what are the tohu that can lead toward compelling alternatives? When we say compelling alternatives, we mean completely different way of thinking to the status quo. Then we've got te whāinga. Te whāinga is a space of where we've seen our tohu, we've spotted them, we've had a little bit of a look. You know, it's a space where we think, oh, look, that tree is blooming different. It's not blooming like it is last year. In this space, we start thinking about, when did it happen? Or when did it happen last? And what are the things what does this mean? We start asking those things. So the questions that we ask to help delve into that is, what do these tohu enable? And what system shifts do they support? What are the tangible mechanisms and actions? What are the things that we can actually do here and now that can help us in that space? Then we've got a space of te whiwhinga. Te whiwhinga is grasping. If you think of te whiwhi, we liken it to a baby reaching for a toy. They can't quite grasp it, but they're reaching for it. Now, if you were a navigator, which I like to pretend that I am, but I'm terrible at it. A space of Te Whiwhinga looks like when you're on the water, you can see your destination, you can see it in the distance, but it's misted over with haze. So you can't quite see it, but you know that it's there. And you know, in order to get to it, you have to do a lot of work to get there. To help people dwell into that space, we ask about the measurable outcomes and what they're seeing, and what are the shifts that supports, and what are the needed capabilities in that space needed for the systems change, all of that kind of stuff. So this is a space of actually doing something and doing it to get to your end goal. Your end goal being your te rawinga. But te rawinga is also a space to collect your data, I was going to say data, but collect your tohu, highlight your tohu, talk about them, reflect on them. Where did they lead you to? What did they lead to? It's a space of reflection and celebration. Then we ask the question in te rawinga, what are the things that you acknowledge? What are the things that you can celebrate? And what are reliable tohu that you can share with others? So as you're on your journey inside of Hautū Waka, we talk about, you're on your journey yourself. And as you're going, you're creating this plethora of resources, this plethora of, don't go to that one, this of tohu that can help you lead to the next space. And so at te rawinga, you have a kōrero with other people where you share all of your resources and say, here's my map, here's my tohu. You can take this and you can use these tohu. They might help you in your journey. Excuse me. So the person next to me, they can take my learnings and infuse it into their mahi. So now we're going to jump over to Miro, and I'm going to give you a bit of time to have a go at some of the tool sets that we use. So on your screens, and you'll get access to this, Jess will share the link to it. But you should be able to jump in here and just have a go. This board was set up, well, this piece here was set up to help us get an idea of where the people that we're working with, where they're at inside of the journey that we were on. So I just finished doing some mahi with whānau here in Manurewa around tupuna parenting practices. And we literally used this, maybe not in this flash form on a Miro. We had it on butcher's tape, butcher's paper, chucked it on the wall. We printed out the phases with the explanations here, which you can do as well. And then we put them in a sequence. We gave each whānau a waka, like you guys have been given, and they named their waka. And then we walked them through the phases. I said, okay, the question was, where are you in this journey that we're doing? Like, how confident are you in talking about tupuna parenting practices? Well, that was the question that we asked anyway. And so they would take a waka and then they would orient themselves. So if they placed themselves at te rapunga or just after te rapunga, it told us that they were just coming out of that phase of not really knowing, but kind of having an idea of where we're going, what we're doing with this. And then if they would take a waka and put it through to after te whāinga, but before te whiwhinga, showed us that they're seeing some really good indicators on how they can share this kōrero around tupuna parenting, and that we just needed to do a bit of prototyping and a bit of testing to help them achieve their journey of talking to whānau about what tupuna parenting practices are and what they look like. So for the next few minutes, and we'll put you into some groups, when you give you a chance to interact with the board. I'll just put this back because I've just stolen someone's rocker. So what we want you to do is to take one of the, go up, select a waka and then chuck your name on it. Because I can see my mate Shane here, I'm going to put his name on here. And then Shane can come and get the waka, because that's Shane's waka, and he's going to tell us where he's at. We want you to do the same thing. So have a think about where you are in this journey, of just mahi in general, of where we are working with Hotiwaka. And so that's the first question. Where are you in this journey of working with Hotiwaka? The second question is around how might doing something like this as a tool set be of aid to you in getting indications of where your team is at? What are some of the questions that might arise from doing this? We'll come back in a few minutes. Thank you for interacting with that. We've got some pretty cool indicators of what's actually happening inside of this mahi that we're doing right now. Hopefully you guys saw that there were these pieces up here where it explained the phases. I should have said that. But looks like you guys did pretty well anyway. So we've got some people, this is interesting, we've got some people that aren't going into Te Rapunga, right? So that tells us that you're pretty much past that first stage of knowing, hearing, doing like the anxiety of like not really understanding. You're not there. You're moving toward a space of kind of getting it, kind of being able to use it. And that's a good space to be. This is a space of infinite potential, eh? Te Rapunga. When you think about the word rapu, rapu means to search. So rapu ngā, adding the end, adding ngā onto the end, means it becomes an act. So it's an act of searching. So that tells us here that this whānau here are in acts of searching. They're still on their journey, still going. We've got a few that are past the sighting piece, and that they're now looking at some of the things that are happening in their environment, and they're taking it into a space of just thinking a little bit more about that. And then we've got some of you whānau who are already sighted some stuff, have already started thinking about that and how that might be implemented and what that might lead to in the next piece. So well done, and thank you for utilizing that tool set. And again, this Miro board will be available for you to use and to implement. Again, you don't have to do it on Miro boards. We did it with butcher's paper. And there's something around, excuse me, there's something around having it quite rough that whānau or people in general they don't feel any guilt about making that piece of paper look or drawing all over it. That's actually what we want. It gives us really good indications. Okay, one of the other tool sets that we just wanted to call out to you, just as the end, is, I need to unhide it. There's this one here. So I'm going to explain how it works first and why. Like, why the moon? Why the marama? So marama is a constant. It doesn't go away, regardless of whether we see it or not. It's actually still there. Marama has been used by Indigenous people, Mairano, as indicators for what can happen and what does happen inside of the environment. Because the marama governs the cycle and the movement of water, the current and flows, its ebbs and flows. So we use Maramataka today as an indicator to help us figure out what is happening in our own bodies. 70-something% of our bodies is water. So it's a pretty good indication. But also it's an indicator that we've been using around energy levels in yourself, but also energy levels that are present in the environment. When we think about energy levels that are in the earth when we're planting, we're not talking about some mysticism, heebie-jeebie type of thing. We're talking about actual, because the marama governs the wai. The water is present in the earth. So we would utilize when the water is at its highest or at its lowest when we plant. So that's what these indicators are. So we've put them into groupings, I suppose. So you've got whiro to okoro, and that's not you've got some kind of energy there, but it's not so strong. When we talk about speaking with people and working with people, it's a good time just to talk, but it's not a good time for meetings, and it's not a good time to make decisions. One of my friends, she said, if you want to have an argument, if you want to have a fight with your family, do it on a whiro moon. So yeah, my family just seem to fight anyway, regardless of whether it's a whiro moon. But anyway, you can use that there. Tamatia, it's a space for good reflection. In the environment itself, it's a bit choppy. It can go either way. You've got ariroa and oturu. Oturu leads you is getting a bit higher in the energy. It's okay to do some stuff. So it's a space, it's a time to be generous, be optimistic, the time to share your whakaaro and share your kōrero. Then we have rakaunui. Rakaunui is the probably the highest energy that you would get. So if you were to do community outreach or anything with your group or with your team, make sure that there's a physical element in there. Because your body is at its highest water, it's got its highest water table then. So you want to find a way to expel some of the energy. Te kore, it's still strong, it's getting slightly a bit diminished. And then there's this peak around Tangaroa. Tangaroa is the last quarter of the moon, but it's also the time where we do our gardening. This is the best time in the dirt, because the water table is still high, but it's not quite drenching. And then you've got Omasu and Matu Whenua, which is just prepping you for that slow decline of energy, leading you back up to whiro. And again, these cycles just keep going around and round and round. Now, you can use this as a way to gauge when to do things in your team, like reflection times, like strategic thinking times, like activations, all of that kind of thing. So please utilize that tool set. And then we've got some dates that you can have a look at. And the way you do it, it's pretty simple. So if I wanted to do something with the community and I wanted it to be quite involved, I would be aiming for along this line. See, so we've linked it up so that they connect. So all of the rakaunui phases are here. So this one is for 2020, what are we in? 3, and it leads through to 2024, and then it continues on. If I wanted to set a space for reflection for my team, or a space to do some team bonding stuff, I'm probably going to go for Tangaroa, because it's not quite high energy, but it's still quite good for strategic thinking and to be productive. Anyway, so this tool set was also available for you to use and to peruse.
Kia ora rā e Roimata, ka kore aku mihi e mimiti ki a koe e wha. There's always so much deep learning every time I hear about Hautū Waka, like te kitinga phase, attuning to seen and unseen tohu, such as the tohu of our natural environment of tāne that you shared with us with the blooming of the rākau, and then also the skill of turning that into a tool for others to practically use in their spaces. E te whānau kia koutou, these are unprecedented times for us, from COVID, flood, cyclone, more flooding, which has left devastation everywhere for our whānau and communities throughout Aotearoa New Zealand. As a tool, Hautū Waka allows us to drop into the complexity and navigate and explore these complex issues and complex solutions that we need. And what I love about Hautū Waka, that as a tool, it is not linear, as Roimata said, or box where you go backwards and forwards, rather allows a holistic approach. As what Matua Shane mentioned, also allows for divergent thinking, which is the inclusion of others with a wayfinding and solution making. It is also good to note that people in your team can be at different phases. which was also shown by Roimata when she was showing our board when we did our activity. And that's back to that non-linear nature of Hautū Waka. And so this also helps break down the commonplace problem of siloed thinking and help improve team collaboration. And today is the first time that we are publicly sharing Hautū Waka, the Hautū Waka toolset. So no kei te tino mihi atu ki a koe e roi. And as mentioned by Roimata, can be used for designing, project management, team reflection. For myself, it's a great tool to help navigate complexity. This toolset also includes Roy's video, which he mentioned from her first session. So if you need a refresher, it's still there as part of the toolset. And then also the Hautū Waka board that has the explanation of the phases that Roy took us through, and also the opportunity for your own team to map out their work. As a bonus, Roimata has also included the Maramataka for awareness of the different energies surrounding and influencing us. We look forward to any feedback that you may have for our team. But for now, we're at time. So with that being said, tēnā tupuna tēnei kōrero katoa I runga I ngā arara o tā whiri kia rere. Ka tū, ka tau, kua tau. Have a lovely day, everybody.